Look around you. The world we inhabit is shaped by stories, and many of our paths were first walked by Romans. The ideas, words, and laws that define our societies have roots in the Roman Empire. Rome's story is not just about emperors and armies, but about people, engineers, politicians, merchants, and families whose lives built a civilization. Their legacy lives on, not just in ruins, but in our daily lives. To understand Rome is to embark on an epic adventure, from mythic beginnings, through republic and empire, to a legacy that still shapes us. We'll witness legendary battles, political upheaval, and the rise and fall of a world power. This is more than history. It's the deeply human story of Rome. Rome's story begins steeped in legend, a tapestry woven with myth and the echoes of a distant past. It tells of twin brothers, Romulus and Remus, abandoned as infants, yet miraculously saved by a she-wolf, a symbol of the wild and untamed spirit that would come to define Rome itself. These brothers were destined for greatness, destined to found a city that would one day rule the world. But their shared destiny was marred by rivalry, a bitter conflict that ended in tragedy, with Romulus killing Remus in a fit of rage and ambition. Romulus, the victor, went on to found Rome in 753 BC, a date that marks the beginning of one of history's most influential civilizations. Thus, Rome was a city born of conflict and destiny, its very foundations stained with fratricide, yet destined for unparalleled glory. In its early years, Rome was ruled by kings, a period marked by both progress and oppression. The population consisted of Romans, Sabines, and Etruscans, each contributing to the city's unique cultural blend. The Etruscans, in particular, left an indelible mark, building its first structures, establishing key customs, and shaping its early identity. But the heavy hand of tyranny eventually led to rebellion, as the people grew weary of unchecked power. The last king, Tarquin the Proud, whose reign was characterized by arrogance and cruelty, was ultimately overthrown in a violent uprising. The Romans, united in their desire for freedom, vowed never again to be ruled by a single, all-powerful king. And so, in his place, they created the Republic, a bold experiment in self-governance. This new government was founded on the principle that power should be shared amongst its citizens, not concentrated in the hands of one individual. 2 consuls, elected yearly by the citizens, led the state, ensuring that no single leader could accumulate too much authority. These consuls were advised by a powerful Senate composed of Rome's most experienced and influential citizens. The Republic became a source of immense pride for the Roman people, a symbol of their newfound freedom and self-determination. However, it was not a true democracy in the modern sense. Power was not equally distributed amongst all its inhabitants. Roman society was sharply divided between the patricians, the wealthy and aristocratic elite, and the plebeians, the common citizens who comprised the majority of the population. The plebeians, long excluded from political power, fought tirelessly for their rights, demanding a greater voice in the affairs of the state. They eventually won the right to elect tribunes, officials whose role was to protect them from the arbitrary power of the patrician magistrates. Furthermore, laws were written down for all to see, ensuring a degree of transparency and accountability in the legal system. This constant tension between the classes and the resulting reforms ultimately made Rome's Republic remarkably resilient and adaptable, capable of weathering internal strife and external threats. The foundation was set for a society that would leave an enduring mark on the world, a society that would face and ultimately overcome immense challenges, both internal and external. Rome's early struggles, its triumphs and its setbacks profoundly shaped its character, forging a people known for their determination and pragmatism. They were ambitious, pragmatic and fiercely protective of their hard-won freedom, a spirit that would drive them to conquer and civilize much of the known world. The Republic's legacy, with its emphasis on law, citizenship and self-governance, would echo for centuries, influencing the development of Western civilization in profound and lasting ways. The Republic's survival depended on military might, a constant state of readiness, and the unwavering loyalty of its citizens. The very foundation of Roman society was intertwined with its ability to wage war and secure its borders. Rome's legions, disciplined, innovative and relentless, conquered Italy, forging a unified peninsula under Roman rule. Their training was brutal, their equipment state-of-the-art for the time, and their tactics constantly evolving to meet new challenges. Then looked outward, their gaze fixed on territories beyond the Italian peninsula. The ambition of Rome knew no bounds, and the legions were the instrument of its expansionist desires. Rome's genius was not just in conquest, in the sheer force of its military power, but in turning enemies into allies, expanding its power through partnership and citizenship. This shrewd political strategy allowed Rome to absorb conquered populations and integrate them into its growing empire. The Punic Wars against Carthage tested Rome's resolve, pushing the Republic to the brink of destruction. These were wars for survival, wars that would determine the fate of the Mediterranean world. Hannibal's invasion nearly destroyed Rome. His daring march across the Alps and his devastating victories on Italian soil threatened to shatter the Republic's foundations. But Roman resilience prevailed, fueled by a deep-seated patriotism and an unwavering belief in their destiny. Scipio Africanus defeated Hannibal at Zama, finally crushing the Carthaginian army and securing Rome's victory in the Second Punic War, ending Carthage's threat and ushering in a new era of Roman dominance. Later, Rome destroyed Carthage entirely, a brutal act that served as a warning to any who dared to challenge its power. With its greatest rival gone, Rome stood unchallenged. Rome dominated the Mediterranean, ready to expand east and west, its legions poised to conquer new lands and bring glory to the Republic. The legions became the backbone of an empire, the engine of its expansion and the guarantor of its security. Their discipline and adaptability unmatched, making them the most formidable fighting force in the ancient world. Rome's expansion was fueled by ambition, strategy, and a willingness to adapt to any situation, constantly refining its military tactics and political maneuvering. Conquest brought wealth, diversity, and new challenges. The spoils of war flowed into Rome, transforming its economy and society, reshaping Rome and the world, forever altering the course of history. The Republic's military machine forged an empire in blood and iron, a testament to its relentless ambition and military prowess. But with every victory, new tensions and ambitions grew within Rome itself, threatening to unravel the very fabric of the Republic. The seeds of future conflict were sown even as Rome triumphed abroad, as powerful generals and ambitious politicians vied for control. The Republic's greatest strength would soon become its greatest test, as the legions that had conquered so much turned their attention inward. Rome's destiny was now tied to the fate of its legions and the ambitions of the men who commanded them. The world would never be the same, forever shaped by the rise and eventual fall of the Roman Empire. Rome's empire grew rapidly after Carthage's fall, stretching from Spain to the Middle East. Governing such vast lands required innovation. Rome divided its territories into provinces, each managed by Roman officials. The empire was held together by roads, straight, durable, and built for speed, linking every province to Rome. These roads became the arteries of commerce, communication, and culture. Roman cities sprang up everywhere, modelled after Rome itself, with forums, baths, and amphitheatres. Aqueducts brought fresh water, enabling urban life on a grand scale. Conquered peoples gradually adopted Roman customs, language, and identity, a process called Romanization. A common culture emerged, uniting diverse peoples under the idea of being Roman. The empire's strength lay not just in its armies, but in its ability to connect and assimilate. Rome built more than an empire, it built a world. Life in Rome was a study in contrasts: luxury for the elite, hardship for the masses. The wealthy enjoyed grand villas and lavish feasts, while most lived in crowded apartments or toiled on farms. Rome's greatest legacy may be its law principles, like innocent until proven guilty, still shape our world. Roman law was codified and preserved, influencing legal systems for centuries. Latin, Rome's language, became the foundation for Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Romanian. Even after Rome's fall, Latin remained the language of learning and the church. Roman architecture, arches, domes, concrete transformed cities, and inspired generations. The Colosseum and Pantheon still stand as testaments to Roman ingenuity. Rome's influence endures in our laws, languages and skylines. The Roman way of life left a permanent mark on civilization. By the 1st century BC, the Roman Republic, once a beacon of self-governance, stood at a critical juncture. Rome's republic was unraveling, its foundations weakened by internal strife and external pressures. This unraveling occurred under the weight of its own success, as the spoils of conquest fueled corruption and inequality. Wealth and power corrupted politics, creating a breeding ground for ambition and treachery within the Senate. Ambitious generals like Marius, Sulla and Pompey used their loyal armies to seize control, challenging the authority of the Senate and plunging Rome into turmoil. Civil wars shattered old values, tearing apart the fabric of Roman society and its long-held traditions. The ideals of civic duty and public service were fading, replaced by personal ambition and the ruthless pursuit of power. Into this chaos stepped Julius Caesar, a figure who would forever alter the course of Roman history. He was a brilliant general who conquered Gaul, expanding Rome's territory and influence to unprecedented levels. Caesar's military victories and populist policies made him a hero to the people, further unsettling the established order. Ordered to disband his army by a fearful Senate, Caesar defied their command and crossed the Rubicon River with his legions, igniting a devastating civil war that would determine the fate of Rome. Victorious, he became dictator for life, consolidating power in his own hands and effectively dismantling the Republic. But his ambition and growing power alarmed the Senate, who saw him as a threat to their authority and the very idea of the Republic. In 44 BC, Caesar was assassinated by a group of senators, but the Republic, already mortally wounded, could not be restored to its former glory. More civil wars followed Caesar's death, plunging Rome into further chaos and bloodshed. From this turmoil emerged Caesar's heir, Octavian, and Mark Antony, two powerful figures vying for control of Rome's vast empire. Octavian ultimately triumphed at the Battle of Actium, defeating Antony and Cleopatra. This victory left him as Rome's sole ruler, unchallenged and supreme. The Republic was finished, its institutions and traditions swept away by decades of conflict and ambition. A new era began, one marked by imperial rule and centralized power. Octavian, now known as Augustus, would skillfully consolidate his power and become recognized as Rome's first emperor, ushering in a new age. The transition from republic to empire was a watershed moment, changing Rome and the course of the world forever, setting the stage for centuries of imperial dominance. The age of emperors had begun, a period of unprecedented power and grandeur. Rome's destiny was now firmly in the hands of one man, the emperor, who held absolute authority over the vast empire. The world's greatest republic, once a symbol of freedom and self-determination, became history's most famous empire, leaving an indelible mark on civilization. Augustus brought peace after decades of war, ushering in the Pax Romana, 2 centuries of stability and prosperity. He ruled as first citizen, avoiding the title of king, but held absolute power. Trade flourished, cities grew, and a single currency unified the empire. Rome became a city of marble with grand buildings and public works. Emperors like Trajan and Hadrian expanded and beautified the empire. Literature, art and architecture thrived. Poets and historians created works that still inspire. The government provided grain and entertainment to keep the people content. The empire stretched from Britain to Mesopotamia, home to millions. For 2 centuries, Rome's vast, diverse lands were held together in relative harmony. The Pax Romana was Rome's golden age, a high point in human history. The Pax Romana ended with Marcus Aurelius' chaos followed. Weak rulers, civil wars and economic collapse plagued the empire. The army became kingmaker and emperors rose and fell with alarming speed. Inflation plagues and invasions weakened Rome from within and without. Germanic tribes and Persians pressed the borders, the empire struggled to defend itself. Diocletian split the empire in two, hoping to manage its vastness. Constantine moved the capital east to Constantinople, formalizing the division. The Western Empire declined, beset by invasions and decay. The Eastern Empire endured, but the stage was set for Rome's final fall in the West. The twilight of Rome had begun. Rome's fall was a slow collapse, marked by invasions and the loss of provinces. In 476 AD, the last Western emperor was deposed, but Rome's story didn't end. The Byzantine Empire in the East preserved Roman law, culture and learning for 1,000 years. Even after Constantinople fell in 1453, Rome's legacy endured. Our languages, laws and institutions are built on Roman foundations. The Catholic Church carried Roman traditions through the Middle Ages. The idea of a republic, citizenship and government by law are Roman gifts to the world. Rome's influence is everywhere, in our buildings, our words, our cities. The story of Rome is a lesson in greatness and fragility, ambition and decline. Its echoes still shape our world, a permanent part of our shared human story.